talk about the school charges that people have been talking about and crying about, and I want parents and families to know that we understand the problem of school charges, we share their concern, but I also have a complaint about the teacher, about the parents, because if they were really playing their role alongside us, I think we would fight better. But I think the parents also have neglected their role, so you find we are not, we cannot follow these charges. Why these charges don't stop? Because it's not a problem that have just started. It's a problem that has been here for some time. When I first came to this ministry in 2016, there was those concerns. And because of that, I appointed the Professor Kayanja Committee to help us do a research and guide us on what to do with school charges and what the problem really is. Why don't these charges never let up? So that committee helped us to understand that these school charges do not follow any documented procedure, that every PTA or governing body and teachers of any school can set up charges as they feel like, or any project comes up, they set up new charges. And that also boarding schools, in secondary schools and private schools, that boarding fees are the major drive. They are the ones that drive school charges in secondary schools, mainly. And so sometimes you find people turning a day school into a boarding school because they have an agenda, a different agenda. Because boarding schools will bring up an opportunity to ask for more charges. And of course, those charges are different depending on the location where the school is. In cities, the charges are higher. In rural areas, they are a little lower. And if the status of the school is from an able community to able to pay, the school charges continue to go up and up, because the teachers realize that the parents are able to pay, which is a problem. Now, that committee also helped us to learn about the common charges and unique fees and charges that never get receipts for both private and government schools, which is really surprising, because government schools shouldn't be charging in the first place. But they charge, and the charges are almost similar to private schools now. Those charges, why I say I have a complaint for parents. In UPE schools and USE schools, where schools should be free completely, but because parents did not play their role, their charges for food, the lunch fee, and that is determined by PTA, and some students whose parents are not able to pay food charges, they can stay there while others are eating in the same school. And I know that for a fact because I was in Tungamo and I learned about a school, a UPE school, where parents from urban centers able parents took their children now and pay fees and pay for lunch, and children whose parents cannot pay do not have lunch. And I called those parents and I said, you people, are you Banyankore really? Because in Ankore we don't, and I trust that all cultures of Uganda, we don't know that culture of having children in the same place, and you give children to these ones, food to these ones, and you leave out these ones because they have no money to pay. I said, I've lived here, I was born here, I don't know where this culture is coming from. But they're shameless now. These days, if you can't pay, you can't eat. So those are some of the charges. Then there are infrastructure development. Even in UPE and USE schools, which are not known to government, because government pays for infrastructure in government schools. And if there is a problem or there is need for additional infrastructure, at least government should know. But sometimes these programs are done at school and they charge parents. PTA determines what money to pay, and they charge those charges. Sometimes there are extra teachers that are not on government payroll, so they pay those salaries and school utilities. Then there are unique expenses in secondary schools of school bus, of school loans, of computers, and things like that. And unfortunately, those loans sometimes private schools take on that are not known to parents, that are not discussed with PTAs, that schools take on anyway, and then have to charge the parents to pay. And sometimes when they pay, even the debts are not paid, the debts remain, then they continue to charge. Then there are other charges for trips, for textbooks, for printing or photocopying, for school clubs, for examination fees, for chemicals, for laboratories, and so on and so forth. So these are the reasons why charges continue to come, that never stop. Now, I wanted to tell you how PTAs started in the first place. PTAs were put in place so that they do a one-time thing, they raise funds, they invest those funds into an income-generating project so that they make extra money for schools. That extra money would ensure that schools are maintained, infrastructure is maintained, that they can pay some some teachers if necessary, and mainly that we can help to maintain the school fees, that the school fees can be stable so that they are not going up and down. That was the basis for putting up PTAs. But now, these PTAs don't do that. Instead, they charge parents every time there is need to do anything. So the school fees are forever going up and coming down, sometimes going up again and up and up. So, in essence, really, the PTAs have become irrelevant, and they don't even involve all the parents. They only have some of the parents they work with, others don't get to hear what is happening. They are just told to pay so much, and if a child can't pay, they throw out the child. That is what is wrong. So, what does the Ministry of Education do? In all that, what are we supposed to do? As I told you, we had a committee at the beginning of 2016. Now we were forced to look for another committee and do a research again. First of all, we wanted to determine as government whether UPE and USE schools should be free schools really, or should be allowed to also pay some of the school charges. Because the president has been asking that question. Should UPE and USE schools really be free? Because they were made to make it possible for all Ugandan children of school-going age to go to school. Now, people know in the country that UPE and USE are not really free. So those who can't pay, the children drop out of school. So we have had a research done again, and we have found out how children are being thrown out every day, sometimes because they have no uniform. And the president said, if a child does not have uniform, let them go to school until their parents can afford a uniform. Because there are many schools in the world where children don't wear school uniform, and they go to school anyway. But no, our schools make sure if you can't buy a uniform, throw you out. And so on and so forth. So, this research, which I am very grateful for, because we were supported by the Norwegian partners to do this research, which we have completed. It has brought all the information about school charges, and it is going to help us now to determine as government whether government schools will now be truly free, or we will allow some charges to be paid by government. That's why you heard that the Ministry of Education was saying that we're going to bring up a statutory instrument that will now determine forever what happens with school charges, and it is going to do that. Because we are now well informed, we have all the information about what brings charges, and really, some of them, as I was saying, if we were working with the parents, we would be able to stop those charges, like those of uniforms, like those of school lunch, because school lunch was supposed to be provided by the family, and children were supposed to bring lunch with them so that there is no fee for that. But because the parents also don't provide that, now the schools bring up a charge. So, that's why I'm saying now I don't want us to do that as the Ministry of Education alone. The Cabinet is going to discuss that as government and determine what we do with UPE and USE. That's when we will come out and inform the public about school charges, what really happens now. That will ensure the school maintenance, how it will be done, the teaching support fee, the school uniform, the examination management fee, the remedial learning, all that will be determined in that statutory instrument, which will come soon, but which I don't want us to do as a sector alone. About admission fee, there are such things as admission fee, and so on and so forth. All that money for teachers' circle, now that's really not acceptable, because the government does all that, as you people know. The buildings are done by government, the teachers are paid by government, the instructional materials are paid by government. So these charges come from areas that have been failed to be taken care of, like I said, the food at school, the uniforms and notebooks and pens and pencils and those things. But recently the president was asking, when you throw out a child who has failed to bring a book, a notebook, throw them out completely out of school, what help are you doing for that child or that family? Why don't you at least let them stay in class listening until they can get a book? But our people don't do that. They just throw out the children. So unfortunately, we are going to have to now determine what to do, and that will rule out all these issues. Up until now, we have been sending circulars, we have been advising schools, don't do this until you have agreed with the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Education, and they don't care. If you want to buy a bus, if you want to do ABC, don't raise charges until you have come and discussed this, whether it must be done. And if the permanent secretary agrees with you, then we will know that this is temporary and you will be allowed to do it for a temporary period. But no, teachers go and do what they want to do. Therefore, we are now being forced into a place where we must find a real solution that will stay. So I thought that's what I would tell you for now. That statutory instruments, I know they've been asking, maybe the media is the one that's been asking, what will it help? How will it? It will talk about the process schools must follow when introducing new or increasing existing school charges and fees, which we have told you from time to time, but this will be a lasting solution because it will be put into law. This regulation shall define what is acceptable and unacceptable school fees or school charges or non-financial requirements to be incurred in schools. It shall also propose maximum or ceiling on how much charges a school can require based on several factors such as location, size of the school, among other variables. So I thought I would inform you about that so that people don't think we are not we don't care about what is happening. We do care, but we also can't just decide without really knowing what the problem is and how we can solve it best. So that's what I wanted to tell you today, and if you have any questions, you can bring them up now.